Well, continuing our instant preview / reaction series, segment number 26, we are joined by Villanova men's basketball beat writer for SB Nation's VUHoops.com and the co-founder of our friends from Road to Garden, Tommy Godin. Tommy, good to see you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. How are things over on the main line?
It's a little rainy right now, but I can't complain, Joey. Thank you so much for having me on, and Mike as well.
Yeah, man, it's going to be tons of fun tomorrow night, Villanova and St. John's, and especially the game where, back on almost a month ago, December 21st, it was not really so much fun for St. John's fans and the faithful, where, they squandered away an 11-point lead in the first half, and it was all because AJ Storr was tired. That was definitely something that we heard from Mike Anderson, the head coach, and Villanova took complete control. And for you, Tommy, you got a chance to see a Villanova team that was struggling in the beginning of the season. They came away with that massive victory, and now they're struggling. Now they are struggling here in Big East play down the stretch, and they're coming to I can't believe I'm saying this, a hot St. John's team at Madison Square Garden tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, what a roller coaster this season's been for Villanova, right? And
Yeah.
that first quarter, I guess if you divide it by in half, the first quarter of that Villanova St. John's game, it was looking bleak, not just for that game, but for the future of this season, the future of the program, really, for this Villanova team. And then David Jones hit a three, and it looked like it was over. Then they flipped a switch. Villanova, they turned it on. They ended up pulling that one out, which was great, again, not only for that one, but for the program and for the season. Now St. John's is coming. We are going up to Madison Square Garden to face that red hot St. John's team. Just picked up the first road win of the year, and what a road win that was.
Yeah, really crazy stuff. And it's nuts to say that, last night Seton Hall and UConn went head to head, and Seton Hall stunned UConn. And obviously a lot of St. John's fans were hoping, well, all right, UConn can get back on track and start beating teams, and then it would look better for them. But now UConn's in a little bit of a free fall, and now it's almost like a must win for St. John's against Villanova. And this is I'm almost at a loss of words, because now they opened up the other side of the 200s level at Madison Square Garden. They're expecting a whole lot of St. John's faithful there, and all of the above. But sticking with Villanova, though, now they're in a little bit of desperation mode too. They almost lose to Georgetown. They lose to Butler. They lose to DePaul, which that one blew my mind. Where do you see this, I guess, the trajectory of Villanova basketball for the 2022-23 season the rest of the way?
Yeah, and that loss to DePaul looks a little bit better since they beat that Xavier team last night. So I'm kind of thankful for that. Shout out to Paul.
Yeah,
But I
seriously.
mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wish I could give you a better answer, but this is unprecedented times down here on the main line. I mean, we have Jay Wright I guess it was suddenly for the fan base, but just suddenly leave the program. Kyle Neptune gets hired pretty much the same day. I don't know the trajectory of this program. I don't think anybody knows the trajectory of this program for the rest of the year. There's a lot of variables going on. Jordan Longino still dealing with that hamstring injury. Justin Moore making his decision, his recovery mentally and physically from one of the most devastating injuries in all of sports. His timetable's up in the air. I mean, you lose Angelo Brizzi to the transfer portal. There's been a lot of moving parts in this Villanova season thus far. So I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I don't know the outcome of this game or the future, but one thing I do know is they're going to battle. They're going to battle for their teammates. They're going to battle for their brothers. The goal remains the same. These are the most locked in group of kids. I mean, Villanova, in all of my, I guess, years of covering sports, Division 1, 2, and 3, Villanova is just different when it comes to, I mean, this attitude. They wear bracelets, attitude. Jay writes books, names attitude. It's about the culture of that program, and these guys really buy into that. I mean, you saw Brandon Slater last game against Georgetown turn the ball over on that travel. The very next play, he gets a steal and seals the game. So, I mean, it's all about attitude with this team, and that's the only thing that they're worried about right now, and the pieces are going to fall where they may.
Yeah, really crazy stuff to see. Villanova 8-10, 2-5 in Big East play, while St. John's 13-6, 3-5. Half game up against Villanova. Who would have ever thought that, Mike Szabo?
Yeah, I think it's really strange. Obviously, for most Big East fans, coming into this year, you obviously thought Villanova's not going, even if they're not going to be the superpower that they've been under Jay Wright. That they're going to. It would be a lot different than what we're seeing right now in the lot up and down year that it is so far. But Tommy, I think I'll bring up a point that we talked about with our good friend Kevin Connolly when we were previewing the matchup a month or so ago, where he was saying Villanova right now, it's a collection of good role players, and it's a collection of players that they're good in their certain roles or whatnot, but I think you're missing that big piece, right? Whether that's Justin Moore being out or the stars like Colin Gillespie of yesteryear and whatnot. Is that really what's the struggle there for Villanova? Is just that missing piece that needs to take them to that next level? Is that just the surface level of what their struggle is?
The surface level, yeah, sure. I mean, you saw the struggles before Cam Whitmore came back, and then he comes back. They rattle off 5 wins in a row, and that's just one missing piece. I do think that they are a missing piece. I mean, to not beat around the bush, I think they are Justin Moore away from competing with that top tier of the Big East. Now, I think the deeper root of all these problems right now is, I like what you said a little bit about a collective group of role players. They don't have a true point guard. I mean, Caleb Daniels played a little bit of point guard at Tulane, and Mark Armstrong was a combo guard in high school. He is developing more into a point guard now in college, but if you're relying on a freshman at Villanova to lead the offense, I mean that's not a recipe for success.
Something else I just want to bring in here before we go back to Mike here. Villanova is 0-3 in games decided by less than or equal to 4 points. And one more quote that I saw out of one of your articles, Tommy, was from Chris Archidiacono. Quote, this was after, I think it was a couple of times ago. You can confirm this with me. Everyone's frustrated because we are not playing Villanova basketball to the best of our ability. And we know, obviously, his brother was on the 2016 championship team. So he's got that winning blood running through him.
Right.
This is uncharted territory for this team. And typically, again, we would be talking about St. John's being in a funk or anything along those lines. But now everything has changed. How do they get out of this funk in your eyes?
I mean, I'm going to sound like one of the players, but they just need to they give the same answers, all of them. They are extremely well trained in the in the media field, but they just need to get back to playing Villanova basketball. And what is that? That's not turning the ball over. That's diving on the floor for loose balls. That's figuring it out on the defensive end first before you figure it out on the offensive end. Villanova's offense is going to be fine. Their defense is their biggest struggle right now. And games against teams like St. John's are a real test, and they're run and gun 40 minutes of hell play style. So it's going to be tough. I think that they need to start with figuring things out on the defensive end and get back to playing just their brand of basketball, which is just tough, hard-nosed, Big East, that style of basketball.
Mike, it's all you.
Yeah, so Tommy, going back to the Georgetown game, it was, I think, to all of us watching, probably a bit more closer than many expected, but they did wind up pulling out the 77-73 win. Does that give any sort of confidence? Joey mentioned the record in closer games this year. Does that give any sort of confidence that even though they got a bit of a scare, they were able to get the win? Building blocks, going back to those sort of platitudes, is that something that they could take on for this next few games? And is there something to build off of there that you saw in that game?
Absolutely. And if you ask anyone on the team, they'd probably disagree. They'd say, no, we're always confident in our ability to close out games and what have you. But I think deep down, I mean, behind closed doors, absolutely. It's a great bill of assurance that they were able, albeit Georgetown, they were able to see one of those games go their way towards the end. I mean, they're a great free throw shooting team, so more of these games should lean in their favor. But yeah, I definitely do think it's a huge boost to the confidence.
Looking at some of the positives of the Villanova side of things here, you look at Cam Whitmore, who you brought up against Oklahoma, came back, and they rattled off 5 straight wins. And this is the preseason Big East Player of the Year, albeit obviously had injuries that kept him out for a good chunk of the non-conference schedule. But what has it been for him from your perspective that has really gotten this has kept this Villanova team from I guess the best word would be to avoid extreme losses like a Georgetown or anything along those lines? Where have you seen that he's been able to really show out in his freshman campaign amidst all the injuries that he's dealt with and keep Villanova where they are, only 2 games under 500?
Yeah, I mean, Cam's been unbelievable. You look back into the summer coming into Villanova, and he played in the FIBA U18 America's Cup with his teammate, Mark Armstrong. Then he comes into Villanova. It was Villanova's media day, and he breaks his hand. And he's out for an extended period of time. So he didn't have that time to really gel with the team, practice, get shots up. So Cam's just been absolutely unbelievable to come in with all the pressure, all the hype surrounding him and be thrown into games after he broke his hand and do what he does. What he really brings to the table to avoid these big losses is just that other scoring option. One thing that I noticed about Cam Whitmore I didn't watch personally a lot of his full games in high school. I mean, we all see the YouTube highlights. We watch the America's Cup. You can only get so much from that before seeing the kid play. And I've seen him practice before he's played. And obviously he can jump through the gym. A freak athlete. He's outstanding. One thing that's really stuck out to me is his playmaking ability, his ability to create shots, connect on some shots from deep. He's not great. I mean, the stats aren't going to bad. I think just less than 1 assist a game. But I mean, he does so many things for other people. Just being out there on the floor opens up so many other lanes for other guys to create. And just him being out there is so beneficial for this team.
Yeah. Mike, take it away.
Yeah, let's go to Brandon Slater. 15 points against Georgetown. He's had quite a bit of an up and down season. I think it was the previous 3 games before Georgetown hadn't reached double figures, got into the double figures territory against the Hoyas. What does he really need to do? Be more consistent. I think we saw how much of a difference maker he could be last year. How big would that be for Villanova if you see some more consistent production from him?
It would be massive. It would be absolutely massive, right? And this has kind of been the story of his career at Villanova. Unfortunately, he's had trouble finding that consistency. I'm not a coach by any means, but one observation that I've made in Brandon Slater's game, he's one of the best free throw shooters in the country. He's at least top 5. I got to fact check that, but I know for a fact he's at least top 5. He's not as aggressive driving to the basket, and he's another guy, freak athlete. He can jump through the gym. We saw him posterize Justin Minaya against Providence last year. The block that he had to seal the win against UConn in the Big East tournament. I mean, he can get up there with the best of them. If he's a big body, he's very strong. I mean, he takes the jump ball for Villanova as a forward. So, I mean, he's a freak athlete. I think if he uses that aggressiveness a little bit more to his advantage, driving to the lane, drive, kicking it out, draw the foul, getting to the free throw line, that would go leaps and bounds further for this team.
Go on, Mike.
I feel like I feel like consistency or lack thereof is such a theme I think we can experience or that we're seeing for Villanova this year. We mentioned Mark Armstrong earlier on. Had 14 points against Georgetown. It seems like both of the Georgetown matchups he's had pretty strong games to start off his first collegiate year. We've seen flashes there. What specifically does he need to do in terms of getting more minutes? Is there something there that he could work into, whether it's key minutes off the bench, key starting minutes, to be a huge difference maker for Villanova? I know it's not really in their mold because we've seen freshmen really take time to grow into their sophomore, junior years to really contribute at Villanova, but it's been a lot different this year.
Yeah, and that's a great question. For Mark Armstrong, it's tough because he's coming in. He was a combo guard in high school. Meaning he played point guard and shooting guard, and now he's coming into a team that doesn't have a point guard, and it's been hard for him to get into a rhythm. And the Oregon loss, which I think personally is the worst loss to Villanova season, he played less than 10 minutes in that game. He was coming off the bench to begin his career here at Villanova. Then he was a starter. Now he's back off the bench. So finding that rhythm is very important for Mark Armstrong. I think if he had more of a solidified role, it would go a very long way for him. But he's probably, not even saying this with hyperbole, he's probably my favorite player on the team. I mean, his explosiveness towards the basket, he's so smart with the basketball. I mean, I don't think I've said this in my sleep. Maybe I don't think I've ever said it out loud, but this kid has Jalen Brunson type potential. I mean, he is outstanding. I talk about it all the time. Cam Whitmore coming in, if he wasn't such a highly touted prospect, this would be the Mark Armstrong show. And I try and tell people if Cam Whitmore is Batman, Mark Armstrong is not his Robin. He's not a sidekick. He's his own superhero. He's his own entity. I couldn't be higher on this kid. I just wish he had a little bit of a longer leash, a little bit more of a chance to help this team.
That's some big praise there. Going with Jalen Brunson. That's a big praise. Mike, continue.
Yeah, so going more into the game tomorrow night against St. John's, obviously we saw Villanova pick up that was it 78-63 win almost a month or so ago. I think a key difference we'll all look at, and alluding to what Joey said at the top of the program, is that AJ Storr will be playing. It seems like will be playing a lot more. Montez Mathis with some injury troubles for St. John. So AJ Storr, Rafael Pinzon getting more time. Does that change how Villanova approaches this game? What adjustments do they have to make? Because you do mention how key AJ Storr was very early on in that game before he seemingly got pulled for most of that first half.
Yeah, that was strange. That was strange in their first meeting. But yeah, these are two extremely different teams than they were the first time that they've met. I think Villanova's methodology and their approach to this one is going to remain the same. I mean, St. John's still plays the same style basketball. They have interchangeable parts. AJ Storr is outstanding. He's fantastic, especially on the offensive end. But yeah, I think Villanova is going to come into this game and they're going to take whatever St. John's gives them. They're not going to do anything different. They're going to try and make them play Villanova basketball, which is extremely slow. That's not what St. John's is used to. And I don't think it changes based on personnel.
Let me ask you this question, Tommy, because this is something that I'm sure a lot of Big East fans as a whole would want to know, especially because for so many years, Villanova has been the class of the Big East. If and when Justin Moore were to come back, is there a possibility or any rumblings that you may have heard that if things are not getting any better, that you just shut Justin Moore down for the rest of the year?
No. This team could be undefeated. This team could be Georgetown, and Justin Moore, that would have no bearing on his decision. they talk about it all the time. I literally just got home from talking to Kyle Neptune and company, and we talked about Justin Moore and this injury that he went through. I mentioned it a little bit in the open. It's almost just as much mental as it is physical coming back from one of these things. So he's going to talk to his family. He's going to talk to his players. I mean, he doesn't owe this Villanova team anything. I would respect his decision, whatever he does, come back, not come back next year, whatever it is that he chooses to do. But yeah, no, I don't think the record has any bearing on his decision.
Okay, that's definitely something that we'll keep our eyes out on. Now, my next question, then we're going to throw it back to Mike to take it home. Joel Soriano, obviously, he's one of the premier guys in the league and in the country as well, averaging pretty much a double per game. But in December, he had a tough time going up against the Caleb Daniels and the Eric Dixons of the world, and those two made his life a living hell down at the Pavilion. So now that things have shifted to Manhattan and they'll be playing at MSG, in front of you figure about, they say it could be 15,000, but I'm going to say about 12.5, but that's just me. What do you see in terms of potential adjustments or potential gameplay there that Villanova has to do to slow him down? Because he kind of took a little bit of he kind of plateaued a bit, Joel Soriano, and then he kind of went back up again. He was going up the whole time, plateaued, and then now he's going back up. So now I'm sure he's going to try and take a big leap against this Villanova team for a quote unquote statement win if they can get it. Yeah,
absolutely. Soriano is one of my favorite players in the conference. He's a double machine. And like you said, Eric Dixon did fairly well against Soriano. It wasn't his best. I mean, he played 31 minutes and didn't have a turnover, which he doesn't turn it over that often anyway, but for any center, especially against St. John's, especially in the Big East, that's a great night, especially against Soriano. But yeah, I think he's going to get his, right? Soriano is going to have a double-double. I mean, we all know that. We'll take that to the bank. He's going to get his. I think it's about containing what he's going to get, and containing everything else around him is going to be the key to victory here.
Mike, take us home.
Yeah, so I think one last thing I'd like to go on is we talked about a lot of the ups and downs of Villanova. Does there need to be any sort of changes or differences in minutes distribution going into the St. John's game? What would your starting lineup be? Is there any differences to what it is now, or certain guys should be getting more minutes going into tomorrow?
Yeah. I mean, we saw it at the end of the Georgetown game. Mark Armstrong got some late minutes, which I think are invaluable for him, not only for this year, but for next as well. My starting lineup, I would put him in over Chris Arcidiacono, but I honestly don't mind Chris playing in one of these kind of games. He is a natural point guard. He's a veteran leader. I mean, his stats, when you look at the stats and the analytics, whatever, I mean, you got to see Chris Arcidiacono play. There's no stat for leadership. You know what I mean? And Chris, he doesn't turn the ball over often. He makes the right plays. He's the quarterback out there of the offense. So in games against St. John's with all of this pressure that they're going to be applying, I don't mind Chris getting the start or extended minutes. But yeah, moving forward, I would definitely solidify Mark Armstrong into that starter role.
I think we sort of alluded to it talking about Soriano and Dixon. Is it that matchup, or is there anything else you're looking at for Villanova?
Maybe on the guard side too, yeah.
Or key to the game.
Yeah, the key to the game for Villanova is going to be, I mentioned it earlier, but making St. John's play Villanova's game, slowing the tempo down. And I think they did a pretty good job of that in their first matchup. The one matchup I am looking forward to is the Andre Curbelo, Posh Alexander matchup against Villanova's guards. Mark Armstrong, he's young. He averages 1 turnover per game, which is great for a freshman point guard at Villanova. Chris Arcidiacono, he doesn't turn the ball over fairly often, but I mean, these guys, Posh just started hitting threes randomly the last couple of games, which is like, where did that come from? So I don't know what's going on that front. But Yeah, I think the guard matchup in this game is going to be just as interesting as, I mean, we got two of the top 5 centers in the Big East facing off in the paint, so that's always going to be fireworks. But the guard matchup, I think, is going to be one I'm going to be keeping my eyes on for sure.
Going to be a ton of fun tomorrow night. St. John's, Villanova. St. John's, their opening line. St. John's is favored by 3.5. I don't know if it moved, but we'll definitely keep our eyes out on that because St. John's as a favorite, that is scary. Villanova 8-10, 2-5. They're heading to Madison Square Garden tomorrow night, 7 p.m. FS1. Ladies and gentlemen, Villanova men's basketball beat writer for SB Nation's VUHoops.com and the co-founder of Road to the Garden, Tommy Godin. Tommy, thank you so much for joining us here tonight, and we wish that we were going to see you tomorrow, but I'm sure we'll see you at some point, and should be a ton of fun tomorrow.
Yeah, it's always a good time with these Big East Conference matchups. Villanova, St. John's, over the years, it's very evenly matched. And you guys have a good time in the game tomorrow. I wish I was there, but thank you so much for having me on. I had a great time.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with another instant preview in the next few short moments right here on the Eastern Observer.